Hello everyone who's watching Black Mental Health Matters. Welcome to yet another edition of Black Mental Health Matters. Though this is a special edition where we are celebrating Black History Month. As African American History Month, we are trying to honor the Black psychologists who have contributed so adversely to the mental health fraternity globally. Today we are having a number of guests who are going to be talking to us about the contributions that these people have brought on board as far as mental health is concerned. My name is Claire Nasasra, right here in Uganda, and I'll be hosting this show with my co-host, sister. She's in Germany. She'll be introducing herself, and then we shall introduce our guests, and then we dive into the topic. So, sister, can you introduce yourself, and then we can get into the topic. Sister, kindly unmute and introduce yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. I'm Sister Olorontoyan, psychosocial counselor. Okay, can you hear me? From Hamburg.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think it's very important that we celebrate Black History Month by remembering those who have made immense contributions, and especially in this area of mental health. Black History Month by remembering those who have made
Okay, thank you very much, sister, for that brief introduction of yourself. So I want to allow my guests to introduce themselves one by one so that we don't spend so much time on introductions, and then we can get into the topic itself. I know our viewers are impatiently waiting for us to get into it so that they can hear what these brilliant people have to say about the Black psychologists. So I will start with you, the only man in the house. Kind of introduce yourself, and then the ladies will follow. This time it's men first, not ladies first.
So my name is Jean-Luc Cadet. I'm a physician. I work for the National Institute on Drug Abuse in Maryland. I'm originally from Haiti, and I now live in Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you very much for that brief introduction. We are going next. We have Ayesha. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, Aisha Giselle. So I am a solution-focused hypnotherapist and expert coach.
Is that how you pronounce your name?
1 minute, please.
Aisha Giselle. So I am a solution-focused hypnotherapist and expert coach.
Is that how you pronounce your name?
1 minute, please.
Sorry.
A solution-focused hypnotherapist and expert coach.
I think we're having some sound issues. There are
Yeah.
But now I think we are clear. We are set to go. So you can go ahead with your introduction, please. Please go ahead. Aisha, go ahead and introduce yourself so we can...
Okay, can you hear me? Because there's a lot of feedback. Yes. Okay, so my name is Aisha Giselle Donnelly. I'm a solution-focused hypnotherapist and expert life coach. I work in private practice, and I'm based in the UK, London, UK. I'm here to discuss the above topic.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm glad to have you on set. I'm more excited to have you on set today. So we have Dr. Love. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dr. Lova Shebu, a GP trained in Nigeria, but currently reside in the UK. Apart from being a medical doctor, I'm also an experienced speaker and writer, and I'm also a coach for teens. Thank you. So I'm actually here to discuss the contribution of our Black ancestors towards psychology.
Okay, thank you very much. But I am from Nigeria. Recently, actually, I think 2 days ago, I've had Nigerian artists in Uganda, and maybe I would like to sing, and I can come to Nigeria and I show you my music anytime from now.
No problem.
Yeah, so just wait for me. We are going to, today our topic is about honoring Black psychologists who have contributed so greatly to the mental health fraternity globally. If I should take you through, we are going to look at a few people that we are going to be recognizing today, and maybe we shall have others along the way. We have a few names here. We have Mamie Phipps Clark, there is Kenneth Bancroft Clark, there is James P. Homer, there is Paul Cornely, there is Miss Joycelyn Elders, there is Solomon Carter. I don't know if people know those people. They are some of the psychologists that contributed to the mental health fraternity in the past. So I'm trying to read out their names so we can understand each other and see where we can start from. And then there is, I'm reading them randomly. I have a list, but I'm reading them randomly. There is Robert Williams, there is Francis Cecile, there is Joseph White. And here in Uganda, by the way, there is someone I want to appreciate right here in Uganda. She was the first Ugandan psychiatric nurse. She's called Rashana Selina. I congratulate her for the wonderful work she did to ensure that the mental health fraternity does not have to right in Uganda. Despite her having her education in the UK, she still came back right here and did something. So if I may start with the only man in the house. How important has been the works of our forefathers in the psychiatry world or in the psychology world?
So I guess you want me to answer the question. I'm a trained psychiatrist, so I went to medical school at Columbia University and did my psychiatry residency there. But I should tell you, as a preface, that I really didn't learn about the contribution of Black psychologists and psychiatrists until I actually started to read more about the racial inequities in psychiatry and psychology and in mental health in general. So the first one that I really became aware of was Dr. Comer, who's contributed quite a lot in terms of discussion of diagnosis, misdiagnosis of Black patients by white psychiatrists and psychologists. It is very interesting that recently both the American Psychiatric Association and the American Psychological Association have put out, I guess, letters, briefs, apologies about the negative impact of American psychiatry and psychology on Black lives. So there's several of the early psychiatrists, for example, wrote a lot about mistreatment. So you know that some of the psychiatrists, American psychiatrists, came up with diagnoses like drapetomania, which is running slave disorders. And later on, Black psychiatrists fought against that. And then in terms of misdiagnosis of affective disorder, manic depressive disorders, as against schizophrenia. So there's that you mentioned people like Bill Lawson, who's still pretty much alive, pretty active. He's written about misdiagnosis of schizophrenia and affective disorders, because when you misdiagnose people, and then there's a way you treat them, right? You treat them with this medication or that psychotherapeutic approach. But if they're misdiagnosed, they end up in state hospitals and nobody seems to take care of them because while they're schizophrenic, they cannot do any better. But if somebody is diagnosed as manic depressive illness, they might get lithium, they get to be treated properly and they're discharged out on. So a lot of the early Black psychiatrists and psychologists spent a lot of time trying to undo white psychiatry and psychology had done to Black people, not just Black Americans, but Black immigrants in the United States. So I think those are very important issues when we start talking about Black mental health. With that, these early pioneers who pointed out the abuses of psychiatry and psychology, I'm not sure where we would be today. So I think it is really important that you're having a program like this.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Dr. Love, do you have any particular psychologist whom you know has contributed immensely towards mental health, maybe in Nigeria or in Uganda right here, or in Ghana, or anyone, anywhere, any Black psychologist?
Okay, to be honest, I like that earlier said in medical school, we even during my psychiatric posting, my 500 level, there was nothing like Black psychologists. Most researches is all based on white, and I was then it was like normal. But as I began to do my residency, I discovered that most of the studies we base them on what the white says. Then as time goes on, there should be Black people that should actually see things from a perspective. So unfortunately, I didn't really see it in Nigeria. Okay, the Ugandan person you're talking about, I just heard of it today. Then until I now browsed, so I now saw all these pioneer Black psychologists that actually paved the way for us. And the person that really caught my attention was Robert Lee Williams, whom you just mentioned. And why his own stood out for me was because of the case of the standardized testing. That when he was in high school, he took the test, and it was said that that his job for life would be that of manual labor. I believe you read about the history, and he went against the norm. He got a bachelor's, a master's, and a Ph.D. in psychology, and he was able to say, no, this test, they scrap it out because it's not favoring the Black. Then he now, as we all know, he now manufactured or developed the Black intelligence test of cultural homogeneity, where white Blacks were able to do better than whites if actually the test is based on Black experience and speech. So his stood out for me because it has to do with intelligence. It has to do with, okay, see, this is my voice as a Black person. I can do this. I do not have to live with the standard of a white person. And it to me is a huge comfort that personally he spoke to me because he was so outstanding in the case of intellectualism. That's okay, I'm a Black person. I don't need to be graded because I'm a white under the white basis or standard. So fortunately, I have not really seen in Nigeria, but the work of Robert Lee Williams spoke personally to me. And honestly, the accolades, the honor that is being given to him is worth it. Because I think because of inferiority complex associated with Blacks, then I wonder how they would have felt knowing giving them a death sentence based on a right ingrained result. No, you are going to be a laborer, you are going to be a farmer, just like that. But I believe when Robert brought out this testing, it was like a breath of fresh air. You can see people, okay, I'm going beyond this. I am more than this, actually in the Black folk. So personally, I actually love his work because personally, I gravitated towards that. So unfortunately, I've not seen any Nigerian prominent in quotes, though we have Nigerian psychologists. I've not seen any prominent Nigerian quotes that actually had made such contribution. So actually, I'm going to tilt towards Robert Lee Williams too. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And just talking about Nigerians, I think it's a good point to bring up the work of Thomas Adeoye Lambo, who was a psychiatrist in Nigeria, Dr. Thomas Lambo, was born in, is an indigenous Yoruba man who was born in Abeokuta. And he had studied psychiatry and, of course, facing this problem, which you talked about. That is, we learn in white institutions about white people, actually. And after studying in the UK and returning to Nigeria, he set up he set up a mental institution, the Arrow Mental Hospital, also in Abeokuta. And he realized he was having problems with the indigenous people, were very suspicious of this institutionalized health facility. So what he did is he started to bring in traditional healers as well, and also incorporated. So while the patients were in the facility, also being treated by traditional healers and herbalists, he also spoke to farmers in the area. So the patients would be here in the facility getting treatment. At the same time, they were still working and productive in the community, and they would go out and work with the farmers. So out of this type of research, he developed his own procedure. And this is so very powerful in that in this area, it reduced the stigma and people were actually getting healed, as this is one of the problems sometimes in the psychiatric institutions, that people are treated and treated and treated, but never really experiencing healing. So I just bring up his name. He was also one of the deputy directors of the World Health Organization. So just to see and honor how sometimes we have our professional specialist advocates and their histories are often hidden, that we don't even know them because it's not even considered or taught in the medicine schools.
Yeah.
So talking about forbidden history, like you put it, should I assume that this forbidden history is stopping us from reaching our set goals as mental health advocates because we do not have we don't have people to inspire us, people to look up to, people because they are not mentioned. They are there, but they are not mentioned, which means we don't know about them. So do we lack this kind of thing of why am I doing this? After all, I'm not looking up to anyone. I'm not looking up to this one. Do you think that makes us lag behind as mental health advocates when we are pushing our emotions across so that everyone else can pick a leaf from whatever we are doing? I'll start with you, Jean.
So if I understood you completely, the question was about whether what kind of standards that we're actually using, because I was having a little problem hearing you. From my perspective, I think what both Sister Olowantoen and also Dr. Love touched on, the idea of standards is a very, very important issue, right? For example, in terms of the intelligent quotient test, right? So those are being used very in a very negative way in the United States also, right? So if you've heard about the bell curve, and this top of the neuropsychological tests, the psychological tests, that when Black patients come into psychiatric hospitals, all of these are normalized on white population. And then they are used to then put Black folks in, people of African descent, on at the bottom, basically, of the wells in psychiatric hospitals. So I think we need to develop our own standards, like Dr. Love mentioned, and Dr. Sister Olo also mentioned, in terms of looking at indigenous ways of dealing with psychiatric illnesses. For example, in the United States, we have these racial inequities in terms of depression, anxiety, and then a lot of these inequities are secondary to the fact that people of African descent are working in majority white places where they have to face the stress of racism on a daily basis. So this is an important issue that we really need to deal with. How, even in places like Nigeria, right, like in Africa, the standards, it was mentioned before, we go get trained in Europe and then in white institution, and then we go to Africa and then have to work and then try to impose white standards on African people of African descent. I've had to face the same thing. I train in a totally white institution. I mean, I don't practice anymore, but when I was seeing Black patients, in my mind, it was really I was applying white standards that I learned under the supervision of white psychiatrists. So this is a big trouble because we need to then basically brainwash ourselves, decolonize ourselves so that we can provide better care for our community. Some of the ancestors learned about this, but because what they were doing were never taught in the schools and the programs that we attended, we had to find out about them later on ourselves. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to Dr. Love. You have to learn this yourselves so that you say, no, these standards don't apply to my patients or the people I want to take care of.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Love, do you agree with what the only gentleman in the house has said?
Yes, I do. But to add to it, you asked the question, why is it that, what actually is the problem that we are lagging behind, right? Right, Claire? Okay. I think the issue, like Sir actually pointed out, was we trying to impose the white standard on the Black community. And secondly, this is actually what I have experienced, is not actually trying to understand the Black origin, where they come from, their preferences, the way they think, or that. Like Mom Solu said, when Dr. Lambo came, he was actually having issues because he wanted to impose it. Then, God willing, he now had to think back. What do I have to do? So it's just in summary of what this could be a major thing of what is making us to lag back in order to push this pair forward. You understand? But actually is actually taxing, because one, we are adults. One, this is what we've been fed. Like Sarah said, this is what we've drank, we've eaten it, we've seen it, is in us, is ingrained in us. And now coming down to our roots, how do we start unlearning? How do we start learning in order to actually, blend with our own roots, with our own origin, with our own people? So I think it has to be, if we as Blacks can actually marshal out our own parts, I think it will go a long way in helping us forward our course in psychology. I actually love this Howard College because it's a historical Black college and university in abroad. But I think actually what they actually teach the pupils, when I browse them, what I got from them, that was some years back, was it was all about, see, Blacks, okay, this is the way we do our own thing. And I believe these people actually, they have their own psyche. Yes, they're in the white population, but they know who they are. Sort of their identity is not being taken, no matter what is being rubbing on them. Do you understand me? So I think if we could actually create our own paths in this area, it will help. It won't be so difficult for us to actually forward our goal. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. Sipa, do you have something to add on what you have said?
Yes, thank you so much. I think when we think again, we have to talk about Black psychology. There is this special now discipline or development that there is now a Black psychology here, where attempts have been made to really understand the experience of people of African descent. And yeah, we can honor our theorists such as Joseph Baldwin, Amos Wilson, Naim Akbar, Daudi Azibo, Sean Utsi, or Wade Nurul, Linda James Meyer, Cheryl Grills. These are all people who have defined what we now know as Black psychology. Psychology through the lens of African philosophy.
Yes, for the lens of the Black man.
Yes, and this is so important. There is now the Association of Black Psychology exists, and it would be great that we also see that we have to really develop our own institutions by us, for us. And yeah, this is very important. This, I think, is a very important point that has been made.
Actually, I would also like to add somebody that people don't often talk about, Frantz Fanon.
Frantz Fanon,
yes.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to list that in your list, because I can tell you as a young person,
yes,
reading Frantz Fanon I guess I was about 18, 19, 20, when I kept on reading and reading his essays,
yes,
basically saved my psychological health, right?
Right.
Because the idea that we are living in white spaces, in walking around with black skin, but have a white mentality.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think it's very important. And then this is not just true of me or maybe of you. Maybe you guys were saved earlier than I was. But it is important for us to recognize that whether people are in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, the United States, or Germany, or England, we all have been colonized to think of ourselves in a way as less than, because they have applied this white standards on us, and we go along with it.
We do, yes.
And then so we need to fight against this. We need to set up and treat our people separately based on our own indigenous upbringing. There's some Haitians who are talking in terms of the inclusion of things like voodoo and other religious precepts in combination with psychology in order to provide better care for Haitians and other people of African descent. With that, this melding of our backgrounds, our history, not the history that we were taught by European colonizers, but the history that was developed by our own people, people like Diop and others,
our story,
who looked and really traced our history before the invasion of Africa by European colonists who abused our people. So we cannot depend on the psychology of abusers in order to free ourselves. So we need to develop our own psychology, continue to develop our own psychology by looking at others who can be for us to do the better work going in the future.
Yes. Thank you so much.
To set an example, if just like what Sir said, if you look at the Asians, One thing I love about them is that they never forget their roots. They can come to the UK, they can go to US, they can go anywhere and learn. But if you see a nation, you see a nation. You know that the person is a nation. There is nothing, there is no brainwash. In fact, I don't know if they've been brainwashed from the womb, that they can never forget their root. And that is one striking thing I love about them. Unlike we, you understand, some of us, we just live on that handout. I believe these are pioneers that actually went the extra mile because they think, no, this thing is enough, is enough. So if you can actually have that mentality, okay, fine, I'm going to learn this from you. I'm going to learn this craft, this expertise from you, but I am who I am. It's not going to change me. I think that will actually go a long way in helping the black man.
Thank you very much for that. Now, each one of actually in the just conclude discussion, you people, you are all focusing on us being African to do our own thing to ensure that we incorporate more of what we believe in than what the whites have brought to us, which is something good. Now, I think what I've noticed is particularly right in Uganda, because there are low incentives. These medics go to school, and when they return to work in government facilities, they actually pay peanuts. And when they pay peanuts, they prefer playing abroad to go and work in the USA, in Canada, in South Africa, and wherever they go to do this work, this kind of work from there. South Africa is actually African, but sometimes they go beyond what I've said. They go beyond just to go and work for the whites because they know they're going to be paid in dollars, in pounds, and they're going to be earning much more than they earn here. So in this regard, if we are going to look at doing our own thing, so that we empower ourselves to reach the greater heights that we're looking up to. What do you think should be done to ensure all this is achieved? Because apparently, if there is no money, there is nothing to be done. Everything rotates around money. If there is no money, if there are no incentives, there is no money to buy the equipment, if there is no money to set up these schools, we are not going to achieve anything. So, us as a mental health advocate, are trying to ensure this happens. Which one should be our first step? Where should we start from? I've started with you, the only man in the house.
You're focusing on the financial incentive. It sounds like. I think it's an issue. I mean, I think this issue is true wherever we go. I've written about this, for example, for the United States, Haitians in the United States, people of African descent in the United States, in Haiti. So what's the incentive? So what happened, because there are no financial incentive in the countries of origins, people leave, right? So they leave and they don't want to go back, right? People get trained, they're living in the United States, Canada, Europe, or England, they're doing well financially. So there's no real incentive to go back. So those are the issues that when we start talking about decolonization of our minds, we have to start thinking, is it only financial incentive that we are depending on in order to do better for our people, right? And the other thing related to that, I think, is the idea that there's not enough money in our countries of origin. I think actually that's not true. I think there are enough resources that if we all wanted to coalesce together, put our heads together and say, okay, we're going to do this for Ghana, we're going to do this for Nigeria, we're going to do this for South Africa, or we're going to do this for Black communities in the United States, or Haitian communities in the United States, or in Haiti, we could do better. So the question is there a will among people of African descent to do better for ourselves instead of falling into the trap of European communities that giving us carrots that we, oh wow, there are a lot of carrots around here. I really don't need to worry about the people behind me. I think that's where the problem actually lies. Are we willing, do we have the will to go and say, okay, we are African, we're going to be programs by ourselves and for ourselves, like Sister said. So that's where the problem is. And the idea is, how do you get to that point where you develop that will? I think the only way to do this is by de-Europeanize, right, our minds. So we need to reject European standards and accept Africanness and say, okay, that's what we're going to do from now on. We're not going to live by as professionals. And then since we are the leaders in the communities, if we start doing this, other people, I think, will follow, and then we'll be able to, as a group, are united and do better for the mental health of our different communities, no matter where they are. I think we're losing the sound.
I can hear you, but I think the hosts.
Yeah, then I jump in right there. Thank you so much for what you said. It's really so true, which is why I think we have to start bringing in such philosophies as Ubuntu into what we do. And what you said is rightful, very right. We come from richness, actually, richness and greatness. And we find ourselves battling, wrestling, and struggling in violent societies that don't really accept us. And in the spirit of Ubuntu, when we start to think that I am because you are, because we are, and notice the interconnectedness of our Black being, our Black communities, then we can start to really generate these solutions together. But as long as we are looking for solutions in white institutions or white societies, I think we just perpetuate the violence. And some of these things which you were saying, Sister Love, like describing how we do not recognize our own values as compared to the Asian community. This has to do with the perpetual systemic trauma which we are still undergoing. It never really stopped. We are not in a post-colonial state. The colonialism still continues till today. The slavery still continues till today. And this is some of the things why it's so important that we are organizing together like this, Black Mental Health Matters, Pan-African Global Network. And this is, I think, what we have to continue to do, seeing that the problems which are affecting us are global. It's not just in a small village. It's not just in Hamburg. We are talking of problems, and it seems like we're living in the same village. Although someone is in Nigeria, someone is in Uganda, someone is in the States, someone is in Grenada, but we are repeating the same thing. We're talking of violent systems of white supremacy, which is still in place, has always been in place. Children have been born and raised, socialized, educated in this system. You know, so yes, I think it's really wonderful what you said towards us recognizing our common heritage and collaborating together and finding alternative ways of living in a society that advances us as a people.
Okay.
So actually,
Yes.
hold on, Sister Love. I wanted to add something to what Sister Ola was saying.
Okay.
You said educated us. I would say
Miseducated.
miseducated because we're so miseducated that we're fighting with each other, not recognizing that we are all descendant of great African doctors, African farmers who were brought to different places and enslaved. But we need to now re-educate ourselves so that we can do better for all of our communities of Africans, no matter where we are. I think that's the important thing. No matter where we are, we need to accept our Africanness and start collaborating and helping each other.
Yes, to add to that, one of the reasons I actually see it as an excuse, though is let me say, it could be valid to some people, is people always blaming the African government. Okay, they contribute to a very large extent. Okay, like Mommy Tony said, if we stay and continue making excuses, we aren't going anywhere. Understand? We actually need to bring out several reasons, several suggestions, several ways, several methods for us to say, no, let's be better than this. So that, like Claire was saying, incentive. Claire, it's true, but like Sar said, it's not totally true. Africans have money. African nations have money. Look at the politicians if you think that I'm lying. If we don't have money, our politicians ought not to have money. You see, all these things have been diverted to so many things, to personal funds, to family funds. So people are thinking that this is the best way. The best way for us to survive is to leave this nation. So I actually see it is another subtle method. Like Statoin said, this colonialism is ongoing. It's another subtle method. You see, African government borrowing loan and loan and loan. It's a vicious circle. It affects the masses. So we see as the best way to go out is to let's move to another country. Now, sorry to drag us, but that was what happened to me. I'm in the health system, I'm in the health sector in Nigeria. Is monitoring? If monitoring is going to be honest, monitoring will tell you what's happening there. Is nothing to write home about. More than half of my classmates are outside the country. And they are doing well in quotes. You know why I said in quotes? Because I am here now. The awareness is not that wonderful. So you see, this colonialism is subtle. It makes you say the grass is greener on the other side. It's not totally true. But in your own side, you have factors suffocating you. So it is what how I wish that the audience, we are like 1,000 or something, is what we actually start bringing our ways. How can we make this thing better at home? Home is home, north, south, east, west. Home is home. And if we don't come together to say, no, African government, this is what we want, or this in our own little corner, set up organization in our home countries, this is what we want it to happen, this is the way we're going to go about, and steadily and gradually work towards, I don't really think we can get it right. That's my suggestion.
Thank you very much. Someone right here that appreciating the only man in the house. If you can say British over and this British striving and invite DOH and many of us delegating and thanks for coming that. Greenland. So some appreciating this gentleman for the input and also appreciate to write up Black matters. And for whoever is watching, in Twitter, on the States of Africa, Twitter, and the other Africa, we need to have Twitter, we are United States of Africa, YouTube, Black Matters YouTube, LinkedIn, Black Matters, Facebook, Africa. You can choose wherever you want to from. Help that it's as they're fighting and we feel it. And this is what we have today. I just want to have lots of content, so you have to stay on the page to get all that. Now, question. Dr. Love just said Africans have money, so they're not enough remain with Medit to go out to find a people who assume that they are going to start on the outside. Let me give you an example. Water in Uganda, whenever the budget is read, the budget is read in June. In June every year, they always read the budget the end of June or mid of July. And always, the healthcare system is given the lowest budget. And to make things worse, the mental health system is given 1% of the maybe the 5% to 8% that is given to the entire health sector in the country. So if you see Africans have money, and they can afford to keep just 1% of the 8% which is given to the entire health community in Uganda. This thing has not only happened in Uganda. Our boss are recently talking to a friend of mine from Kenya, who actually also said they give the same 1% to the mental health fraternity. Which happens in Tanzania, which happens maybe even it's even worse in DR Congo, it's even worse in Sudan or something like that. So you say Africans have money and they want to give out this money to ensure
Excuse me?
I can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Claire.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Your voice is very faint and is echoing.
I really don't know what's happening. Maybe something's happening that I don't know. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Speak maybe slowly. Maybe if you speak slowly, it's better. There's a network problem. No, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you. It's off.
Can you put the microphone close to your mouth, maybe, and then speak a little bit slower?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Speak slowly.
So my point was about the budget allocation to the mental health fraternity. Like I said, whenever the writer in Uganda, I'll give you an example because I know more about Uganda than any other country in the world because I'm Ugandan. So I'm looking at a point where Ministry of Health is always allocated maybe like 10% of the entire budget that's always read out. And the mental health fraternity is always given 1% of that entire budget to cater for the mental health issues all over the country. And these issues not only happening in Uganda, but in Kenya, in Tanzania, and it's even maybe worse in DR Congo, worse in Sudan, or maybe the other countries.
Yes, there seems to be network problems, which is one of the disadvantages of this online network. But still, it's the possibility to bring us together. So maybe I take the time now to just read something a little about Frantz Fanon, who you brought up.
I'd like to hear that. That would be great.
Yes, okay. So Frantz Fanon was born in Martinique, educated in France, and after psychiatric training, administered a psychiatric hospital in Algeria. He made numerous contributions to psychiatry, which are described in the which maybe are remembered in his books, 4 books. So as recommendations for today, one would be Black Skin, White Masks. Then we have Towards the African Revolution, A Dying Colonialism, and of course, maybe most people know it as well, The Wretched of the Earth. Fanon became a spokesman for the third world citizens of all nations by describing in sensitive, clinically astute terms the psychology of racism and its untoward effects upon oppressor and oppressed. He also described the dehumanization and psychological treatment inherent in colonialist exploitation. With Dr. Fanon's premature death at the age of 37 in 1961, the world was deprived of one of the most eloquent and skilled spokesmen for those who are oppressed by the pro-white, anti-Black paranoia, which is racism.
Yes, that's so it was very, very disturbing to me as a 20 something reading Fanon's lectures, and then to realize that as a Black worldwide community, we lost this brilliant psychiatrist, psychologist, this thinker that really helped me. Think about what he could have done if he hadn't gone so early.
Right.
So I think what we can do as a group, and we're here together talking about these issues, is to actually push for other individuals like Black psychologists, Black psychiatrists, social workers, to really try to work better together in terms of trying to counteract the negative impact of white psychiatry and psychology has had on our people. Somebody in the audience mentioned the thing about the misdiagnosis. Misdiagnosis, in whether it's in Africa, in Europe, in Africa, one of the biggest problems that patients face. And that's not related to finances, because whether you are upper class, middle class, lower class Black person, your chances of getting misdiagnosed by a by a white psychiatrist or psychologist is about the same. So I think it's very, very important that we recognize and not think it's a class issue. There are people in our communities who like to talk about, oh, this is a class issue. Most of what we face as in terms of mental health is not related to class. I mean, think about Naomi Osaka. I mean, she's a multimillionaire. And when she started to talk about her mental health, she was attacked mostly by a bunch of white individuals who didn't want her to take care of her own mental health. So I think while we're discussing this, I think it's really important to pay attention to the fact more and more Black folks, okay, even those who are not trained like us, are realizing that the standards that they've been living by are Europeocentric, right?
Right.
Eurocentric. We need to go revert to Afrocentric standards so that we can have better mental health care. It's very traumatizing to live in communities where you feel where the propaganda of white superiority, Black inferiority is what's driving the system. It's very traumatizing.
Yeah, what I want to add to that is this. I'm actually going to say from personal experience. Mental issues is really, really underreported in the Blacks. Starting from home, starting from Nigeria, my country. And then it's being perceived as if most people buckle it up. You are not meant to be sick. You are not meant to be sick mentally. You understand? You know, the Blackness, I don't know if I am overshooting, I may be wrong in this next statement I'm going to make. Blackness is actually a synonymous with strength, with strongness, in quotes. You can endure this. You understand? That's why most of them, our Black mothers, no matter what they're passing through, they still do the chores they ought to do.
Strong Black narrative.
You understand what? Even if they die, they will have to get this thing done. So it's been looked upon as if it's an abnormality. What's mental health of the Black people? We're talking about Nigerian experience, right? No, we don't. We are all strong. That's why I don't know if I'm actually going to talk about postpartum depression, which I passed through. It will like the first time it happened to me, my host was like, does it happen to us? What is postpartum depression? Is as bad as that. Is being looked at as an alien thing. So like Sir said, if we could, there is nothing to be ashamed in mental health matters, honestly. If we as Africans can just leave all this strong man showmanship and say there's nothing wrong in admitting our vulnerability. This is one of the things that can make us, repel these Europeanized ideologies. Admitting our vulnerability. Yes, I am sick. I have anxiety. I think it was last 2 3 years when suicide rate was so much in Nigeria. They were like, what's happening? It has been there. People are covering it up. People are using rapper in my own native language to cover it up because you are meant to be strong. That is what the black man is in African country. So most of these things are underdeveloped. You understand? They see it as a daily thing. You come out from it, no problem. But it shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be so. So if we can actually go back home, re-educate our people, decolonize their brain, okay, there's nothing wrong with this. Come on, let's be free. I think it will go a long way to help us.
So
Thank you.
sorry, sister. So when we're talking about being strong, I think we also should probably touch on stigma, the stigma associated with having some mental health issues, and the fear of seeking help from a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a social worker. So I think those are issues that play a prominent role in preventing us from seeking help and helping ourselves and being better and basically surviving racism-induced stress disorder.
Very good. Yes. I wonder if you know of Kenneth and Mamie Clark.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so these are a married couple, psychologists.
Okay, yes, Kenneth and Mamie Club. Yeah, I read about them. The first couple
Exactly.
to
They
get
worked as a
engaged.
married team and conducted a lot of research about among children, during the civil rights movement.
I read about them.
Yes. Also, one of our ancestors who we remember as we talk about psychology and historical contributions. You know, in the 1940s, they performed a lot of experiments using dolls to study children's attitude about race. So I remember how really moved and heartbreaking I was to see this doll experiment. It's being used often today too
Yeah.
to show the impact of racism, and with it you can show that children as young as 3
3.
are impacted by racism. And their work was pioneering in this area.
Even this lady Jennifer Eberhardt, the one
Yes.
that I think her work is highly recommendable too. I really commend her for her work, for her to be able to bring out this subtle unconsciousness of people judging blacks, associated them with crime. I think it is a good one too.
Very, very important. Yeah. What other historians? We can't name them all, but who has impacted you in the work? Who are we trying to emulate? What energies are we trying to recall in the work that we're doing regarding mental health? Those who we honor, those who have dedicated their lives to improving the mental health of Black people, and we thank them for their contributions. And today we are remembering them and talking about their work.
Yeah, the one of the people that actually I personally gravitated to was Beverly Daniel Tatum. She's still alive, and the one that made about racial identity and how race affects children. So okay, there's something she talked about. She was like talking about race is
Talking
really
about
important. Discussing about it is important in eliminating racism, and that is very, very important. There's nothing, some people that are not blacks, they normally gloss over it, they normally cover it up. There's nothing wrong with talking about it if actually everybody's open-minded towards it. It helps. It helps in identifying and eliminating racism, because you may be racist and you don't know. The other person may be racist and you don't know. And you as a black man may be prejudiced against the other person and you may not know. It's also a form of racism. So
yeah.
it is good we discuss about race. There's nothing wrong there. It helps in identity. And she was like, incorporating it in education is very, very good, especially among teenagers. Let them embrace who they are. Let them embrace their racial identity. It's very, very important. I think that's her work is also commendable.
Thank you for that contribution. Are there other names that we should recall tonight?
There are actually many of them, but I actually want to commend all that they did. How is this Black History Month is done in African countries? Honestly, it's only done in the USA. In Africa, what we don't, because we are all black. So what do we know about Black History Month? So when I came there, I said, having a headache about Black History Month. Africa is Africa. Like, I strongly believe, assuming it was done back home, these psychologists, I would have heard about them, because
Yes, yes.
this then when I was still at home, these pharmaceutical companies go from hospital to hospital, telling us about their drugs. So there's something that they always do. They always give us studies based on what white people have done. This person Adele did this research in Scotland, that this antibiotic work. So one day, one of our consultants, he was very honest. He was like, it's either no black man has done any research on this antibiotic.
Yes.
So it struck me. It's not really it's not a fighting thing. That's what people don't understand. It's about you being you and embracing you. And there's nothing wrong with that. You mustn't always copy and copy and copy. What about you? What about your originality? So I believe that if this thing can actually be done in African universities, even if they don't want to make it, this African Black History Month can be brought down to our universities. Let's start from there. To our secondary schools, let's start from there. I think the way we are totally dependent on the other people, it will on the West, it will not be like that. We will be proud of ourselves. Be proud that we have pioneers that have achieved something for us beyond Nelson Mandela that we've been hearing his name. Also in other areas of expertise. That's what I want to say.
I think actually this touches on something that Franz Fanon talked about, is the fact that as Africans, descendants of Africans in the diaspora, we have a tendency to look towards Europe, right?
Yeah.
We look towards Europe and reject the motherland.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do as Black psychiatrists, psychologists, social worker is actually look toward the motherland and reject Europe, reject so that we can be free of all of the tentacles that are squeezing our mind and our psyche. With that, the rejection of Europe and the embracing of Africa, I think we're going to continue to suffer from stress and depression and psychosis and anxiety. And it's not a question of financial resource. It's a psychological
Mindset.
mindset. Yeah, we need to undo it. And as professionals, we need to work with our folks, trying to undo that, decolonize our own minds, and then hopefully help other people to decolonize. And but at the same time, though, we need to work hard so that if we're working in institutions, say in Germany, England, or United States, where the hierarchy is controlled by white psychiatrists or psychologists who are misdiagnosing our people. We need to stand up for our people. Our ancestors did that. So it is as if we forgot that ancestors were brave people, brave men and women who stood up and said, "This is wrong." We need to do that too. We need to say, "This is wrong. This is this misdiagnosis. You cannot use this medication with this person because you misdiagnosed this person." We need to say that racism does have an impact on people's psychological health, and then whatever it is, we may have to accept some punishment from the European colonialists if we do it. But we have to be brave and repeat what our ancestors did.
Powerful statement.
Yes.
Very powerful.
Yeah. Okay, Claire.
Claire? Thank you. Welcome.
So sorry about that. There were some technical issues that happened here. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you answered my question when I was away.
We did.
Okay. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So as regards to Black History Month, because this is the Black History Month, what did we learn as the Black mental health fraternity from celebrating Black History Month? What are those lessons that we are learning from all these things? If I may, let me start with it, Dr. Love.
One of the lessons personally I learned is that to be original, your originality matters. Okay, that is the striking thing. Okay, this thing shouldn't be imposed on me. I am my own person. I am different. I am unique. I'm beautiful. I'm Black. The original. That is the striking thing I learned today.
Besides being original, in regards to mental health, what are some of those lessons that we learn in regards to mental health?
Okay, in regards to mental health, there's nothing to be ashamed of if you have a mental health issue. No, that's one thing with Africa. You were not here when we discussed it. We discussed it extensively. Like Sar said, it's actually associated with stigma. If an African should come and tell you, I'm having postpartum depression, I'm having depression, I'm having anxiety, they'll look at you, they're supposed to be strong. So most of these things are underreported in Africa. So there's nothing to be ashamed of if you have a mental health. You should come forward. That's what's.
Sister, do you have something to say about that?
I totally. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I totally agree with what Sister Love said, and add to it how important it is that we always remember that we are connected, and that the spirit of Ubuntu is really very important, and that through this we can utilize our own indigenous African ways, in a way that will advance us as a people. So as we have all been miseducated, socialized, and we try to regain and acquire our own ways of being and ways of doing, that this is a very important thing to us as Black people in these times of modernity.
Thank you very much. Now looking, because they were honoring the Black psychologists that made it possible for us.
Can you put the mic on your mouth?
Today we're actually honoring Black psychologists who made it possible for us to easily actually talk about mental health issues today. Because if it were not for them, we wouldn't talk about mental health issues today.
Right.
So what are some of those lessons that these people had to teach us so that we are able to actually feel free to discuss mental health the way we are discussing it right now. Dr. Lam, let me start with you.
Actually, we've discussed that also, right, Mommy Toy?
Yes, yes.
We discussed extensively when you were offline. We even mentioned some of the pioneers. We mentioned how their work personally affected us individually and collectively. Yes. And Mommy Toyin had to read the biography of some of them and were able to input too.
I mean, I could read something about Frances Cress Wilson to honor one of our female pioneer psychiatrists. She was Frances Cress Wilson, was born in March 18th, 1935, transitioned January 2nd, 2016. And she's an American Afrocentrist psychiatrist who was born into a family that had already produced 2 doctors. After receiving her bachelor's degree, she went on and pursued a career in general and child psychiatry. So maybe another tip for reading is her essay, The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism, White Supremacy. So this theory is rooted in the origins of racism and the effects that it has based on the different degrees of skin color, of melanin. Depending on the amount of melanin we have in our skin, there are different racial perceptions and developments. She also talks about the quality of whiteness that as a genetic inadequacy, or a relative deficiency or disease based upon the inability to produce melanin. Her work is very groundbreaking. She has also the ISIS papers, the keys to the colors, and we honor this great warrior queen, Frances Cress Wilson. There's also a lot on YouTube, which you can also look at.
This was her name again?
Frances Cress Wilson.
Okay.
She believed that the key to eradicating racism lies in self-respect, discipline, and education. And she says we must clean up our neighborhoods. We must revolutionize ourselves. Whether white people are consciously or subconsciously aware of it, they are behaving in a manner to ensure white genetic survival. And we must know this truth. And the truth is the first step toward real strength.
Go on, play.
Yes. So this is also important, I think. I think what today has shown us again is how important it is, how important this month is. Actually, it should be 365 days in a year, right? That we are learning our story, Black history, And it's sad to see. Somebody told me they went to a university. I think it was the University of Lagos. And they were expecting, this was a German student who was here and went there and was expecting to find all this literature about, Black historians, Black doctors, and there was nothing there. So I hope it's the right university, he said. I can't, but
yeah, and I hope so. Next time, more of this discussion will take place, and we'll be able to act in them. We're able to do things from our own corner. Okay. So on this note, I would like to leave. I'm needed somewhere else.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mommy Toyi. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, newcomer.
Good morning, ladies.
Welcome.
Hey. How is everybody?
Dr. Megan, you're so late, but you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes, welcome.
I apologize. When I agreed, I did not look at my calendar, and so I had a doctor's appointment. So,
though we got your apology, so you have no issues coming in there this time.
Yes.
So, before us concluding our discussion, but you can give us a few insights of what you think about Black History Month in regards to Black mental health matters. How does Black History Month impact on Black mental health matters?
Well, definitely, we definitely need to know the history of.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry. Yeah, definitely knowing our history and how things were like. I think the importance of history is knowing what has happened before so you can be preventative about it. I think that's part of the problem with the whole CRT and all this other stuff. They don't want that known because I just feel like, okay, it'll keep us aware of not allowing those certain things to happen again. The good thing is, there are allies in our community, and so they can help prevent it as well. But our mental health is different from others' mental health. Nobody has experienced what we have experienced as Black Americans, even though there were situations where people were enslaved. It was a different, experience versus like this. And then it wasn't added on to by Jim Crow and continued redlining that we have right now, voter suppression, all the things that they are trying to do, at this point. And I mean, if you look back in history, this is how it all started. It started quote unquote little and got bigger. And the next thing you know, there's separate bathrooms. So you're muted. I can't hear you, Claire. You're muted.
Today we are celebrating we're actually honoring Black psychologists who have contributed diversely in Black mental health. So,
Yes.
Is there a Black psychologist whom you know who has done something for the Black mental health fraternity, so that maybe you can give us some insight about those people and we can get to know about them and their contributions?
I'm sorry, I went from one thing to another, but I can't think of the person's name right now, but I do a lot of presentations about microaggressions. And while there is another doctor that has been given credit for that was actually started and researched first by a Black man in the 70s. I don't have my presentation with me, but he's the one who discovered and coined the term microaggressions, which I kind of now, usually when I do my presentations, I call it more like covert racism, because that's what it is. It's just a different way, to be racist. And, but it's a softer way of saying it. And some of it is intentional. And so people can be educated, but the question is, do they want to be educated? So, yeah.
What are some of the lessons do we draw from the psychologists that we're honoring today, so that we can maybe implement the lessons in our daily work, so that we can improve the mental health work that we are doing?
Well, he discusses not only recognizing microaggressions, but how to combat them. And so just to give an overview, just in case some of our guests don't know, microaggressions are like small slights that are given to people of color, but also other minority groups. So sexual minorities and all of that. And so it could be as simple as me being a business owner and owning my own practice. But when somebody comes in for an appointment who has never seen me, they're asking for the real boss, or, like they assume that I'm the secretary or whatever. Or when students are at schools and they see a student of color in a doctoral program, but they just assume that they are like the janitor or something like that. So that's what microaggressions are. And so one of the ways that he says to combat that is to call it out. And that includes the group of people who were being having those microaggressions against them, but then also allies who you shouldn't, he says they shouldn't be sitting around just watching things happen. They should say something to their peers. So, for instance, if you have a Caucasian person that says something, another Caucasian person that has some awareness will say to them like, "Hey, that's not appropriate to say," or that joke is racist, or that comment is racist. All of the above.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Megan. Since you found us concluding, thank you for the brief remarks that you've given us. And whoever has been watching us on our different social media platforms, thank you very much. I see people watching from the UK, from Liberia, from South Africa. You people, we don't take it for granted. We thank you very much for keeping it up with us. And thank you very much whoever has celebrated Black History Month at Black Mental Health Matters today. So from me, the host, Clan Assassin, I'm right here in Uganda, and my co-host is in Germany. Dr. Megan, where are you right now?
I am in the Dallas area of Texas.
Dr. Megan is in Texas. So as you can see, we are a global community at Black Mental Health Matters, and would like to wish you a good night from here in Uganda. For us, you're going to sleep. It's already late at night. And I think in Texas it's morning time right now.
It is noon, 12:30.
And in Germany, I also think sister is almost getting to bed. Yeah, it's getting late. Yeah, so we wish you all the best from Black Mental Health Matters. We'd like to say thank you very much for supporting, and have a nice time until next time.